So MRT, I think, is a great solution for the physics issues that the brain faces. The brain's physics is clearly abnormal in autism. Physics is the product of the brain. It creates this electrical harmonic that it uses for communication, and it's not working properly in anybody with autism. We haven't looked at one individual with autism that has anything close to normal physics. I'm also going to talk about siblings with ADHD symptoms and mothers who present with PTSD, mothers of children with autism. We can't tell the difference between mothers of kids with autism on their EEGs and combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. Are you surprised by that? No, that doesn't, like, you're not surprised at all by that. It is not FDA approved for the treatment of autism, and MRT as a specific modality of TMS would only be approved for the treatment of refractory depression. So after you've had failed experiences with SSRI drugs or SNRI drugs, after you've had electroconvulsive therapy and you're still depressed, imagine that, then you would be a potential candidate for MRT. But we're using it in an off-label application based on some very unique properties of the magnet. So today is Friday. It's May 22nd. And it's my son's graduation from high school. He is 21 years old. Some of you who saw me this morning already know this fun fact, but some of you didn't catch the morning lecture. Let me just kind of go out and brag on him a little bit, okay? So when he was a young man, he had intractable immunological problems. He was actually, we flew him to England. He was scoped at the Royal Free Hospital by Wakefield's team there. They found naturally inflammatory bowel disease in the terminal ileum, like most of our kids have. They were able to do the procedure quickly. We got the path reports back rapidly, and we also got the reports from Professor O'Leary's laboratory that showed persistence of measles virus in his terminal ileum. We're not allowed to really say that in the United States because, of course, there's no negative side effects to measles vaccines. And that doesn't mean, the measles virus being there probably doesn't mean anything, according to some sources. That's my handsome young man. At his graduation, I only have the proofs, unfortunately, because we haven't been able to get the pictures yet. He graduated from the Diamond Community School. It's a special school, not for special needs kids, but it's a school that was set up for to try and have a Christian perspective on education outside the public school system. So he finished all the standard curriculum for the state of Florida, took his tests and passed them. Darn handsome man. I can't imagine where he gets that from. And he's been accepted to the University of North Florida, where he'll start in August. So, so that's kind of my success story as a parent. He is the reason I'm in autism. He's the reason I'm here today. He's had MRT, IVIG, hyperbaric oxygen, IV chelation. I can't even begin to list the number of supplements that he's been on, numerous medications, the entire combination to get him through this process. He's probably had close to $1 million of ABA therapy. His IVIG costs that were out of pocket were probably in the $300,000 range because it didn't get covered by insurance. And you now know why I don't have a retirement plan, and you'll be seeing me for years to come. So not going anywhere soon, believe me. So I've had the pleasure of hooking up with some great scientists, researchers, and clinicians over the years. And one of the things that I try and do is to find people who have that energy to create the next wave of intervention. So there's a lot of really great thinkers out there. There's a lot of people who are outside of the normal box who are thinking, let's re-paradigm this. Let's think about the brain in a different way, or the immune system or the microbiome in a different way. So Jin is just an amazing guy. He's a Chinese scientist, a psychiatrist. He's on the faculty of several universities in California, and he created the algorithms that we use to create the magnetic protocol that we call MRT. It is substantially different from TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. Our efficacy in a variety of disorders is much greater based on our observations and our test outcomes than with typical TMS. If you go to the Brain Treatment Center center.asia/English autism, et cetera, you can look at videos and you can see other parent perspectives. You can see some of the kids that have been through this, including some kids that were horribly self-injurious. There's a child from Hawaii that's in the video. Some of you have seen that video where he was just beating himself and his mom. Terrible sort of a situation, and within a matter of 4 weeks with MRT, he went from that to a well-behaved, cooperative kid who didn't attack anybody or himself, started talking, playing the piano, taking this bus. Lots of good things happened in a short period of time. So those kinds of things create a lot of expectation, and is the expectation there that you might be able to see dramatic changes with autism from MRT? And the answer is yes, it's a real possibility, and I'll show you some of the reasons why. So a lot of our efforts at the BTC, particularly in the California office, have been moving into the military application for post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. We've had some PTSD, TBI cases in Atlanta as well. It's been very exciting to see really brain injury, I mean substantial, like to the actual brain structures from trauma, whether it's motor vehicle accidents or military trauma, actually recover dramatically in short periods of time. So, and Marco in his lectures yesterday, Marco Ruggiero in his lectures on the brain and ultrasound showed some extraordinary pictures of individuals who had had huge amounts of their brain removed and were still functioning very well despite that. The brain has tremendous capacity left within it, apart from just those areas that may be dysfunctional in autism. Sergeant Warren has a great testimonial. It's been in the media a lot. You can find out about Sergeant Warren's history, but he's a man who went from a life that was going to rock off the edge to helping other veterans to get better, and works at the center in California now. It's really awesome. So what is this MRT stuff? So what we're looking for is a method to entrain, train the harmonics of the brain. Entrainment is a specific definition in physics. We're trying to capture the rhythm so that it will come with us as opposed to where it is. Why do we want to do that? Why do we want to entrain the physics of the brain towards our direction? Because literally large portions of the brain are not functioning at all in a commutative way. They're not dead, they're not in a coma, but they're not connected to anything that's functional for that child. You can see that. You'll get these moments in your child, almost all of us see that, where suddenly it was there. It was like connected, like, I just want to hold on to that, don't let go of that, and then it's gone. So what does that tell you? The hardware is present, but something's interfering with the function of the system. So it can be the immune chemicals, it can be neurotransmitters, but the end consequence of whatever that insult is taking the physics, the actual communication offline. How many of you have experienced the frustration of looking at your cell phone, trying to make a phone call, and there's no connection? The same process is happening in the brain of kids with autism. And I'm going to go over that so you can kind of see from the literature what we think about how the brain is communicating. So what we do is we look at an EKG, a cardiogram. We look at an EEG, which is the electroencephalogram, and we analyze the physics and the harmonics of the body within those systems using a unique algorithm. That algorithm is, as you might suspect, proprietary. That algorithm is also why we don't have the papers published yet from our research in autism, because if you publish prior to the patent being accepted and granted, you have no patent. So Dr. Jin's organization, Newport Brain Research Laboratory, is working diligently to get this to the point where I'm not involved in the patent, where they can have the patent. The magnet that we use is extremely powerful. How many of you ever put your hand up on the magnet and clicked it and felt like what happens? It's like cramp. I mean, it's like really a strong magnet. Now, that's at a fraction of its potential output. It's capable of more output in magnetic field strength over a distance of about 10 inches than a hospital magnet that we use for imaging the brain. So we have a 4T capacity. Most hospitals limit their magnet strength to 3T. Now that sounds kind of scary, but used properly for a brief instant, it just clicks. It's for a second. Very much like how we pulse the laser for just a billionth of a second. what you do is you capture the harmonics of the brain. So you'll hear when you are present in the room and we're using the magnet, you'll hear this click, 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 click. That's actually the electrical stimulation of the magnet causing deformation of the coil. The magnetic electrical coil actually contracts. How many of you have been in an MRI scanner and felt like you were in a garbage can with someone banging it with a hammer? I mean, it's an awful experience to be in there. It's really loud and noisy. But that's the actual magnet contracting under the influence of the electrical forces, electromagnetic forces. What we do, and I'll go over this in more detail, is we look at interval changes. So we develop an idea of what we think the brain needs from an electrical physics perspective. We'd give it to the brain, we'd use the treatment, and then we come back and look again and say, okay, so how did things work out? Did we get the kind of desired results that we're looking for? Do we need to make further adaptations? But it also has predictive capacity. How much would you like to know if this therapy is actually worth time and money before you invest large amounts of time and money in it? So that's our goal, is to get a predictive outcome. We know from going backwards with our cases. So if you look at the cases that did really well and you look at that first week, we know from the changes that we see, and I'll show you an interval change in that first week from another patient that just came up in my clinic here recently. And you can start to assess yourself and see, wow, that looks like that kid's going to be a responder. And then we have other cases where we can probably get this kid to move forward, but it's going to be a real struggle. It's not going to be a simple process. And you need to know that. You may be like, I don't care, whatever you got to do, I'm here. You want me to move, to the state for the next 6 months, whatever. There are those kind of parents. Some of you are saying like, that ain't going to happen. So unless this is easy, we need to go somewhere and find some other sort of modality. But you need to have those choices and be empowered as parents to know that. So that little monkey is Aaron. He's my stepson getting his EEG. My stepson also has autism. He's one of my tough nuts. I mean, this kid has been really hard to move forward, and he is really starting to emerge at age 14 after a lot of laser and a lot of MRT and a lot of other things. He is really coming together in a big way. Language-wise, as far as his motor skills, his walking, his gait, his academic skills, we're seeing very impressive improvements in all those domains. He's not particularly pleased with having an EEG. You can see his expressions kind of like, do I really have to do this? But he's being cooperative. We have an amazing staff. They're capable of getting EEGs on kids that would prefer to eat them than to have an EEG. I mean, we have just an amazing staff at our office. It takes the powerful magnet, and the magnet is cloud-based in terms of its operating system, so it's linked into a controller system based on our physics interpretation of the EEGs. So none of the control of the actual protocol takes place by the therapist in the clinic. It all takes place based on the physicist at the office in California putting in the modalities and saying, this is what we want for this particular brain. Kind of cool, isn't it? I think it's kind of cool. So how does the brain actually work? How do you get this amazing bandwidth of data exchange? We work closely at the Newport Brain Research Laboratory with scientists from Intel. And what is Intel's big interest? Intel's trying to make faster data passage through computer chips, right? But there's a problem with that. First of all, you can only move electrons at the speed of electrons in that system, which is slightly less than the speed of light. They heat up if they make too sharp of bends. If they're too close together with their electrical discharge, they start to connect to one another, and the electrical activity can't be separated, so you lose discrimination within the electrical circuit. And we have an analogy in the human brain. But if you look at the speed of transmission of a neurological membrane, it's very slow. It's very challenging to account for what the brain does on depolarization within a membrane. It's just too slow for the amount of bandwidth and information that we're carrying. So how does it work? It works very much like your cell phone. So a bundle of nerves in one area of the brain fire connected-wise, they synchronize, and they create enough energy to talk to another dimension of the brain that's kind of tuned in like a cell phone receiver tower to catch that message. That's pretty cool. It doesn't have to travel down the wire. It does. We use the wires. They're useful, but it's why you can see these amazing speeds of processing.